Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Sonia, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Corbin,
Here.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Digital,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mayor Denner.
Here. We have the agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion or comment? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. There is nothing under appearances and acknowledgements. We'll go to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We'll move down into unfinished business. Item number 1, update on the Madison splash zone.
Thanks for having me back. Just to give you an update on the splash zones, we had the 4 events. First one was out at Bachman Park. We used roughly 41,000 gallons of water, had close to about 200 kids. It seemed like a pretty good time. We did have a couple minor injuries. 2 kids ran into each other. One got a bloody nose and another one slipped and sprained their ankle. So everything went pretty well considering that was the first attempt at this, and we had well over 200 people. So the second event was out at the Aquatic Center Park. It was a little bit smaller. I think we had just over 100 kids. We used roughly 28,000 gallons of water. There was no injuries there. We had one girl who got clonked in the head by her friend when they both went down together. So everything was fine there. Third one was out at Memorial Park. We had roughly 60 kids or so. No slip and slide there. No issues there at all. We used roughly 6,000 gallons of water. The last one was up at Totland Park. That was more geared to younger kids. I think we had 40 to 50 kids. No injuries there as well. So kind of overall, it seems like it's been going over really well. I think going forward, we're going to try doing it once a week and maybe do just one of the slip and slide locations, probably stick more towards Bachman Park just because it works really well for us with the hydrant being so close and all the facilities and everything. So the biggest issue that we have is just coming up with the volunteers labor. So we'd like to do them in the afternoons. And if we're going to go once a week, maybe do 1 to 4 instead of 2 to 4, extended an hour. And then the other thing is I was going to ask you guys is if we could continue to use the parks labor to help set up and tear down, because that's the hardest part. It's really only about 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. And if you got 4 or 5 guys who can help roll that tarp, it makes it a lot easier than 2 or 3 of us. So that's kind of our plan going forward. We did get 35 tubes, so that should make things safer too as well, because at the top they can get on the tube, go down, and they don't get stuck halfway down and then lollygag around on the bottom, and then kids get impatient and go down and hit each other. That's usually where the problem lies. So I'm not sure if you guys approve us going forward to this. I'm not sure if we'll be able to have one ready to go by tomorrow, just because I'm not sure if we'll have the volunteers lined up. I'll see what I can do if I can get, I think I only need 2 people. And then we can go ahead with that. So other than that, that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions or anything.
So Tuesdays going forward.
Tuesdays going forward, I think we'll just do every Tuesday and make it. That way Wednesday will be the movie theaters. And then it sounds like you guys might have some ideas for Mondays and Thursdays. So obviously it's all dependent on the weather. If it's like today, we probably won't do it. If it's 80s or above is kind of probably the cutoff, just because the water's so cold coming out of that hydrant.
For volunteers, what do you need, 2 guys? I mean, how many guys usually?
Usually we have 2 firefighters, so one firefighter runs the pump, and then usually I'm there at every one, so I just kind of walk around, make sure everything's going all right. Then we just need 2 people at the top of the water slide and 1 at the bottom. So
Okay.
I think Randy will be able to help tomorrow, so we'd only need 2. And basically all they got to do is stand there and just, go, just making sure kids aren't just running and going. And then the person at the bottom just watches to make sure kids are clearing out fast enough, because sometimes they try to run right back up the slide. It's just a little bit of a learning curve for some of them. So
Is there a lot of setup time before that 1 p.m. start?
no, not really. Usually it takes two guys about a half hour to do, me and another guy. Like I said, the hardest part is really unrolling the tarp, getting it situated, nail it down, put the cones up and yeah, set up the hoses. It's really not bad. Setup, tear down is where the tough part is because we got to flip the tarp to get all the water off, then fold it up and roll it. And 120 or 130 foot by 35 foot tarp is pretty heavy when it gets. all
I'd
over.
be willing to help you tomorrow.
Okay.
Come volunteer help.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be one if I had one more person, and I know Dustin Young from the city water department, he's come and help. I know Chad Patch, Jason Limmer, Kester Dahl, those were three guys that worked for the city that they were really hoping to be able to come do one. So that would even help too, if any of those guys can get over there, but that's all dependent on their schedules as well, so.
Yeah, I think it's a matter, especially for volunteer, especially for tomorrow, it's a matter of just finding the volunteers. If you can't find me with your fire department volunteers, we can find the city staff. to help.
Okay,
I'd say
yeah.
plan on doing it.
That'd work then. I guess we can just consider it on for tomorrow and then we'll just be out there from 1 to 4 then, so.
Yeah.
You gonna stay with these 4 spot locations, you think, or?
I think we're just gonna either do Bogman or the Aquatic Center, because it seems like the slip and slide is what everybody wants, so. Ideally, I'd rather just do Bachman Park, just because it's set up for us, it works really well, but I think we'll just keep alternating it each week, just because then you're kind of on each side, so. But,
Back at Bachman tomorrow.
yep, Bachman tomorrow, yep.
I know from our side, we really appreciate the efforts that have gone into it. I know the kids really, from what I've heard, it's really appreciated that. So
Yep.
We do thank you very much for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think all the guys at the fire department are happy to do this. I mean,
A lot of positive comments.
yep, we had a good bull ride and the tips showed it. So, I mean, the public feedback has been amazing. Obviously, we haven't had a fundraiser for 18 months, so that sort of support, on that side of things it really helps us as well, so. So I don't know if you guys need to approve it for longer to be able to use those things, or if,
It doesn't hurt. Why not? Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we move the splash zones to Tuesdays from 1 to 4, and then have it alternating parks between Bachman and Aquatic Center Park.
Second that.
Any further comment or discussion?
Yeah, and to allow city staff to help us. needed.
Yeah.
Not hearing anything else, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Dan.
gentlemen.
Thanks.
What time do you want me there tomorrow?
about 12:30 would be perfect.
I'll be there.
Item number 2, provide direction to staff regarding the whole 2021 opening of MAC. Brett,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the commission, not a lot to report to, other than we did have a chance to go visit the MAC with Lori Bunker and go over the different items that we needed to look at and other issues outside of the electrical and ventilation problems at the MAC. There's actually a fair amount of things that could be updated and worked on while we have a cool down that we probably need to consider. And I've compiled a list, and we'll have that available here for consideration shortly. So
Wonderful.
we've got some ideas on how to do some things a little bit better, maybe use some of the componentry that's available here locally for, just to make it so it's easier to maintain and some of that stuff, because there's some things in the configuration which are nice, but they make for a maintenance issue for the pool. So it'd be nice to change that, and we'll get to that later. But we did have a good productive visit there, and got a lot of information and looked at more components, and like I say, learned a little bit more about what needs to be done there. The plans for the electric will be done Monday. Talked with Mark today, and he said he'd have them to us for sure by Monday next week, so. And we'll be shopping the electric plans. I have not heard anything on the boiler.
that will be, so we can put out a bid for the electric.
Yeah, we'll do it as
For the
quotes.
labor.
Yeah, we'll do quotes for the labor and bring back those quotes and see what we get.
when, being you said the boiler, do you think we're gonna have to go to another pool company and get it through them?
We're trying through a local vendor, a local HVAC contractor to see if he can get, get it bought. And we haven't had any contact back from him on whether or not they'll sell it to him or not. So I was under the impression that he would be able to do it, but haven't gotten any confirmation of that one way or the other.
Anything else you're gonna add, James?
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of recap how we got where we're at, what our future plans are, and then my intent would be to remove this item from future agendas, just because once we have a plan in place, we just need the time to implement it at that point. But today would be the time to receive any further direction or alterations to those plans before we move forward. So just a quick recap of where we're at, and I think it's important for the public and for ourselves to remember, this was discovered last November, which seems like a long time ago, but it takes a lot of time to research the issue, diagnose the extent of the problems, come up with solutions with multiple insurance companies, which did the same thing and determined what they would and wouldn't cover. And we did not hear back from the insurance companies for the one in particular until May 18th. It was our legal counsel's advice to not purchase anything until we knew what was going to be covered. So May 18th was really the start date from when the city could start acting upon the repairs that are needed. And as we know, the electrical supplies are 8 weeks out once we got those ordered. But even if you would have ordered them on May 18th, that really takes up most of the summer, not including the labor that's needed on that as well. So that's kind of where we got where we're at. Moving forward, as Brad said, the plans are being finished to provide the labor on the electrical repairs. Those materials are probably still a month out, I'd say at this point, or 5 weeks. And then that work would be completed as soon as possible. There is a phase 2 of the project, which I would classify as the non-time sensitive issues, which including the reconfiguration of the chemical rooms, cleaning of necessary components inside with the dry ice cleaning, and some other parts as well. We would be planning on doing that kind of a second phase at the end of 21 or beginning of 22, because our time and effort right now is being spent on that phase 1 for the immediate repairs that are needed. Something I would like some feedback on would be when you'd like us to test out the pool. Once we get those repairs complete, it's still possible there might be other repairs that are needed, other equipment that are broken or components that would be needed. We could try testing it out right away, fill up the pool with water and see what works and what doesn't work, and then still get those electrical components in to fix it. Or we could wait until those repairs are done first, and we know that side works before we test it out. I guess pros and cons is if you do it earlier, we might be able to diagnose some of those potential issues sooner rather than later. Downside is electrical components might prevent us from doing anything anyway, and we would be filling the pool up twice. Not a huge deal, but we probably want to fill up, test it out, and the water can't just sit there stagnant. It has to be recirculating. So for the commission's point of view, would you like us to test it out sooner with the understanding that we still would not be opening the pool until the repairs are done? So when the public sees clean water sitting in the pool, that could lead to some questions, of course. Or would you like us to get the repairs done so we know that side's fixed and then start testing out and diagnosing any other potential issues?
Is there any water in it now?
Yes, there's water antifreeze mix that's in it now. It has to have that so that the pool doesn't float up out of the ground with the groundwater.
So we have to empty that and fill it.
Clean it up.
I think from my stance, I think we should fill it, test it. Now, in case there is other things that have to be fixed.
Give us more time to diagnose.
Okay. See some nodding heads. So I
Make
think
sure
that-
we are good to go next May.
Yeah, that's certainly the intent behind all these actions, is making sure that next year we have a smooth startup. So we can do that again with the understanding that, we're testing, diagnosing things. We still need the electrical repairs to be made. But we can do that.
So we're going to fill it and check it out before the electrical stuff is done. We can.
We possibly could do it. It's possible though, that the electrical corrosion in there could lead it to not being operable at all, and then we would have to wait for sure.
Okay.
If that's the case, we'll just be back to where we are.
Is there any other maintenance items that you're aware of that need to occur with the pool being empty? Or-
There's a lot of cleaning that will be done in the spring. I believe that's a
Sure.
logical time. There's a couple smaller things that we can do this year. It was recommended that we wax the pools or not the
The
pools, the
slides.
slides on the outsides and the inside of the main pool. That waxing should be done every spring and fall, so we'll be doing that this fall. There was the plastic parts around the pool, what are those called?
Yeah, the little drain, it's a running drain, and then there's also a drain that's in the brick that runs through there that needs to be cleaned out. It gets full of silt, more or less dirt piles up in there. And so then we gotta go in there with the power washer and clean it out. There's a gentleman that's done it in the past for us, that's power washed the pool and cleaned it up. And then there's the specific stuff they use in the pool. We wouldn't probably do it at this point in time, because obviously unless we're gonna get it open, we'll have to clean it up some, probably power wash it with just a power washer and try to get it as clean as we can, but.
When was the last time it was painted?
Well, that's the interesting thing about this pool is it doesn't get painted.
Oh,
It has a special plaster that doesn't require painting per se, although they did do some work to it. And the only thing that's happened to it is that there was a specific cleaner you have to use. And for a while, they weren't using that specific cleaner, so it did deteriorate the pool slightly. But since then, they fixed it back up and it's gotten with the right cleaner and everything's back to as good as it can be from what, discussions with Lori.
So it gets cleaned each year. It just
Yes.
doesn't need to be painted. It's the way the construction is built.
amazing. We'll do a cleanup this year, I'm assuming you're going to go ahead and go through all of this.
I mean, like I said, there'll be some cleaning that it's just logical to do in the spring because we'd have to do it in the spring anyway. But there are things that we would want to work ahead on and get done this year. So we've got a pretty extensive list at this point. Things that
There's
need to be
plenty.
ordered and fixed.
There's gonna be plenty of work between now and next
Yes.
May.
Well, we've always said we want to fix it correctly.
Yeah.
We might as well put the time and effort into it now if we're gonna do this.
Agreed.
So most of this
I think that's all.
work
about
will
that.
be done by the city employees.
There'll be some stuff like that, some of the, like next year when we do the cleaning, there's a gentleman that has the portable pressure washer with hot water that he comes and does that for the pool. Done it for many years and has all the right stuff, chemicals, everything to do it and clean it up and get it done right. So Lori highly recommended bringing that same person back because they know exactly what they're doing and we don't have to go through retraining, so to speak. Yeah, and there's some other things that, again, some components we need to order and get them here so that it can be here for the coming year.
James, when will we begin the process of looking at hiring a pool manager and standard operating procedures and things like that for next year?
Yeah, good questions. We also want to make sure we're ready to go next year on the staffing and the responsibility side. I think on the mechanical side of things, having somebody who's got a certified pool operator certification is something that's important. Obviously the city's kind of taking this back over and there's a lot of work that comes with that. And we're trying to decide how much we can do with current staff versus how much we have to do with new staff. I think there's some thoughts on having somebody who would be in charge of checking that facility every day. And that's gonna be important, whether it's a current staff member or a new staff member. As far as the operations on the public side or the personnel side, once we get operating next year, I think at this point, it would make most sense to hire some kind of seasonal employee who would be primarily working that 4 months of the year, 3-4 months of the year, the pool's operating with some limited hours before and after that as they get things started up and then settled down as well. Right now, I mean, as far as just current city employees, we wouldn't have anybody that have the time to take on that load of the operation throughout the whole summer. So we'd have to be doing some kind of seasonal employee. It's possible we could look at a full-time person too, if we believe that there's work that could keep them busy year round as well. So we're investigating, researching a few different ideas. I think I don't need any action at this point. That's our plan moving forward. We need the time to implement it, but this would be the time if anybody wants to see anything done differently or any different direction. We can certainly look into that too, or move differently. But if we're we're good with the plan, and that's that plan we'll move forward with, and we would come back to the commission in the future as updates are available, but we wouldn't have it listed every week on the agenda.
Sounds like you have a good plan to make sure the pool's open next year. This room isn't gonna be very fun if it's not open next year. So,
I support your plan.
yeah,
100%.
sounds great, thank you.
Great, thank you all.
Move down into, thank you, Brett. We'll move down into new business. Item number 1, authorize the mayor to sign agreement for construction contract Helmy Inc. Madison Water System Improvement Bid Schedule 1, Phase 2, Base Bid A. Would you want to say anything on this?
In general, the next 3 items are all related to allowing the mayor to execute on agreements for the contracts for some of our RD projects. We've already awarded the bids that have been bid out to these companies. This is just to allow the mayor to sign the agreements. That'd be the same statement for all 3. Stand back for any questions.
Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement for the construction contract to Helmy for bid schedule 1, phase 2, base bid A?
So moved.
Second,
Is there any further comments? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried. Item number 2, authorize the mayor to sign agreement for construction contract Helmy Inc. Madison Water System Improvement Bid Schedule 2, Phase 2, bid, base bid B, water tower loop line. James said this, just another contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Item number 3, authorize the mayor to sign agreement for construction contract J&J Earthwork Inc. Madison Water System Improvement Bid Schedule 3, Phase 1B, base bid and base alternate 1 and 2.
So move.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion on this contract? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Item number 4, approved transfer of capital outlay and maintenance reserve funds to CC operating budget. Okay, if you wanna. This one.
We need to transfer that 35,819,37 left in that reserve into our operation budget. We're a little shortfall still here. Trying to get back into that swing of things. We will have our DSU contribution next month that will help us out. But right now, we need to transfer that over for the next payroll part.
I have a motion to approve the transfer of the capital outlay in the maintenance reserve fund to CC operating budget.
I'll make that motion.
second,
Did have one question. Probably should have asked during the MAC, but have we decided anything from the city side? Opening up the pool for indoor
Yep.
swimming?
We will have a July special here coming up, $3 day passes for the pool, any age, doesn't matter, $3. Or we'll have an individual pool pass at $30 for the month of July. And then we'll come up with something in August here with our marketing team to try to have something to get us through before school starts back up. Yeah, but July, there is a special for that we tried to come up with. Even this month, we actually have, you can still take advantage of it. You buy any month-to-month membership, you get July free. So you're looking at an adult or a youth could pay almost 50 cents a day for that rest of June and July. That's a pretty good deal too. Giving us some opportunities, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there certain times the pool
We're open from 1 to 7:45 at night
for open pool?
for open swim, yeah.
Okay, open swim.
Is that something we could push through the app, the city app, so our public knows?
Mass text messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would find out more about that, but that's something to do.
The one that Tess uses for allergies and stuff.
We can staff them.
I just think it's important if we're gonna offer some sort of a pool deal, then we need to try to push that information home.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any other comments or discussion on this topic? Not hearing any?
I would just add, this morning, we had a few people meet from DSU, from the city and from the community center. We had a very productive conversation, just kind of learning what they've been doing. They've been working very hard trying to recruit members back. And as people from DSU and from the city, what can we do to help support them in that as well? So we're trying to find ways to help spread that information out there, look for other ways to partner together to get that facility in back in the shape that it used to be pre-pandemic, which of course hit the facility very hard. So I just want to thank the staff and everybody who's able to work together on that as well.
Yeah. Thanks. We are open and we got classes, we got everything going. Full stride.
Okay. Any other discussion or question? Hearing, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item number 5, discussed regarding creating a process for strategic and capital improvement planning. It's yours.
Yeah, it is. Hey, I think one of the items that the commission had in mind when you created this position was to have somebody who could take a closer look at longer term planning, strategic thinking, goal setting. And so this is kind of an item to begin that conversation and see what direction the commission wants to move in. In general, there's a few different types of planning you can do. Strategic planning is often common, and you can look at the activities and the goals of the city, what you want to reach in the next several years. They don't have to be financial related. They could be making the city more versatile, more efficient. And of course, you want to be very specific in those goals as well. But strategic planning is something that you could do in-house. You could hire somebody to come in to help you. My recommendation to the commission would be to hire somebody to come in to help with that. Somebody with an outside perspective can be very beneficial to the planning process. Somebody can help gather community input and thoughts and feelings about what the community is doing, what it should be doing, where it should be headed, and putting it together into a document and working with you to finalize that. Capital improvement planning is another one that's very common. CIP that would be more geared towards the larger purchases and the efforts of the city to extend services, to update infrastructure, to encourage economic development, to add quality of life amenities to the community. It can really be pretty all encompassing. And we do have a lot of departments already that have some of those plans and those infrastructure plans moving forward. But this would be something that I'd like to see us do to help bring it all into one place, see everything in one document, which would be helpful. And then allows you to look at your future forecasts on revenues and determine what do you want to have included in that plan. I think a lot of times it can be overwhelming when you see a dozen different projects coming at you at once, but being able to set them in the right place and organize them, it allows you as elected officials to better utilize your residents' resources that are contributing to the community. The second item, or the next item on this agenda, which you can get to, is for capital improvement plan. It is enlisting the services of ISG. They are a company that's already worked a little bit in Madison. They did the downtown master plan through LAIC and the chamber, and so they are at least somewhat familiar with the community here. And they offer capital improvement planning resources. And I can talk more about that plan specifically when we get down to it. That'd be one avenue for helping to move that forward in a manner that would allow us to get things in the budget for 2022. throughout any kind of planning process that you do, you want to gather as much feedback from the community as possible. That can be done through surveying, through focus groups, and that's something that I think at the city we could take a stronger role in, or you could hire that out as well if that company wanted to do that. If you wanted to save some money, that's something I think we could do in-house as those planning processes are going forward. I don't know if the city's ever looked at establishing mission statement, vision statement, goals for the future. If that's something that's been put in the paper before, that's something that could be incorporated into a strategic planning effort or something that could be done separately as well. In order to do this, wondering if you guys want to have some retreats. Commissioner Corbin's brought up to me in the past, as have some staff, about having some kind of commission retreat. I think the important thing there is to set an agenda for what the discussions are going to be. Do you want to use it to kick off one of these planning efforts? Do you want to use it to kick off budgeting for next year? Whatever the case is, staff can assist in getting that set up. And it's often helpful to get outside of the usual city environment, get outside the commission room, maybe even get out a couple miles outside town just to take your mind away from the usual environment that you're in, help you to think more creatively and strategically. So we could look into avenues to do that as well. And I know Brad's providing me some resources from some different entities that are able to assist with commission retreats, strategic planning, and much more, kind of everything that I've covered there. That's a lot of information thrown at you for some broad topics, but I want to use that to kickstart conversation as to what kind of strategic thinking does the commission want to engage in, and how do you want to do it?
I'm 100% in favor of strategic planning, capital improvement planning. I think that would give us directional focus on where we're trying to go. I think the community is we're in kind of a pretty important growth point, and we want to capitalize on everything we can when it comes to some of these things. We can't look at it as at a cost. We have to look at this as an investment, no matter what it costs us. And we're investing in the future of this community, in my opinion, from that side of it. So, but I'm only one person, of course. I'm all in favor of retreats. I think retreats are important as well.
What was the question?
How do you want to start some of these things? And maybe I can provide some kind of template there, because I know I threw a lot at you. I'd like to see the capital improvement plan, if that's something you want to engage in, move ahead quicker, because there's things that are already being planned for 2022. And if we get that plan together, we can have it in time to be ready for the budget season. Since we've been able to delay that this year, that gives us added flexibility. Strategic planning, if you want to put together a document for that, I think would be best used over the winter, often a little bit quieter time. And then it's not as tied to the budget either. There's certainly some things on there that require finances, but not everything. And then the retreats would be a tool to help accomplish some of that, either kicking off those efforts or creating the documents and finalizing it too. So just looking for direction on if that's something that the commission is interested in, and we can continue with that. And if you have any feedback on if you want to do a retreat, what kind of you'd like to do? Would you like to do a full day? I don't know what your schedules look like. Do you want to bring somebody in to help facilitate? We can research options on that as well. Probably didn't do any good summarizing just a simple question.
Covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, a lot bounced around this head.
I guess, my opinion is, I work with these capital improvement plans a lot in my day-to-day job, and I think it would really help a new commissioner like myself, outline a pecking order of the projects and the direction we want to see. So I would definitely be in favor of it as well.
So the engineer's office typically puts together like a 5-year capital improvement plan. So this would be, how would this be different?
What did this involve? And so I'll pull from that. What I found was helpful is that I believe that every community needs to fulfill the needs of the community and then some of the wants of the community. Sometimes those wants are the difficult thing to prioritize, but if you're not adding any of those quality of life amenities, if you're just having clean streets and safe streets, that's fantastic. But I think you're missing out on an opportunity there to make a great community that people want to live in. And oftentimes the infrastructure plans that are done, by many cities, it's the needs of the community. It's what we need to keep the lights on and to keep the streets clean. With this, you'd be able to set all those needs up and then see what you have available yet for some of those wants, gather feedback and input from the community on what those wants are and prioritize it. Decide what items are going to make the plan, which ones aren't going to make the plan, and the ones that you're keeping in there, what year do you want to try to schedule those for, and how are we going to pay for them? Where's that funding gonna come from? What grants are out there? And it sets a roadmap for the next several years.
So don't list out where we can find grants for projects.
Not necessarily, but I think that's something that, it could, because a lot of times when you have a capital improvement plan, it's not just gonna be what you're doing, but what your funding sources can be. You're gonna have water projects, electric projects, et cetera. And then you can have general fund projects, and they could note in there whether there's grants that are commonly available. That makes sense. And I don't know, do we have anybody from ISG on? Steve Watson's on. Steve, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, if we're talking capital planning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jameson, and members of the commission. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there in person tonight, but I appreciate you accommodating me virtually here. Just a couple things that I think would be good information for you guys to have. One, I think these plans by a third party is validative. So, ISG's approach to this is looking at existing studies that you have in place, working with your engineering staff and others to just have another pair of eyes reviewing that and making sure that the conclusions that you've come to are also in line with some of our professionals. And then another thing that I think is unique about the approach that we take is we involve a number of different disciplines. So, if we were to work with the city of Madison, we would bring in mechanical, structural, civil engineers. We'd also have architects, landscape architects, and then planning and funding professionals that would be part of the process. So we would basically blitz your community and review all of your city-owned infrastructure and facilities as we come up with the recommendations.
I almost feel like bringing in a capital plan, improvement planning firm would be a measure we would do after our planning session, once we realize that the resources we have on hand are inadequate to pull this stuff together. I almost feel like all the pieces are already here. It's just aggregating them. From park standpoint, I don't know if we've ever actually tasked those people with coming up with a plan. And that from an infrastructure standpoint, I feel like the people that know our infrastructure best are the ones that actually work on it every day. That's my thoughts. It'd make our job easier if we had it. Very much so. We could pretty near get rid of the commission, just do this plan.
Well, I think there's value, there's strategic planning in the planning of this capital improvement plan too. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand there, so.
And I guess I am also in the point of, I really would like our community input in some things. What they want. I mean, it's always, we're doing this, or your rates are gonna go up and that. I want their input. I think that they're paying taxes, and I think maybe it'll validate some of the things we're trying to get done with their input as well.
Brad, do you have some?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, one of the signs of wisdom is planting a tree knowing you'll never sit in the shade. This is our opportunity to plant those trees. The study tells us what trees to plant and where to plant them. And that's what we need to do. And we need to work through the process. The process should give us everything we need to know what trees to plant, where to plant them, so that the following generations get to bask in the shade that we created. I don't know if I can say it any better.
Well, if that's what we get, that would be amazing.
Well, you're talking parks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd better have the word tree in there several times.
I think it's
Go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I really appreciate that point. It's about being proactive. It's about being inclusive, not just limiting it to the city departments and the commission, but also working with the greater community to help set those priorities. And then being flexible too, knowing that there's things that come up, there's emergencies that come up, there's new funding opportunities that come up. So those are kind of the keys to success in my mind. We've done a dozen of these plans across the multi-state region. And I think people are always impressed with just how inclusive the process is. We've got it down to a science.
Thank you, Steve. I was just gonna, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I was just gonna post back, capital improvement planning is something I have on the agenda for tonight, but pulling us back to kind of the larger picture there. Would the commission be wanting to have a retreat this summer, this fall? Or do you want to cover budgeting, strategic planning, capital improvement planning? What's your focus?
When are we gonna start the budget?
The first reading could be delayed as far as the first meeting in November.
Maybe the middle of September.
Staff will start working on budget.
Of
before
course.
then, of course.
I'm only thinking of myself. Probably working on it right now.
But as far as defining your long-term goals and
Well,
big
having,
projects, that
Budget hearings and the whatnot, I guess is what I was asked initially. I worded it better. Yeah, I think we should. I mean, we have a bunch of new commissioners.
That's good. And I guess I can just kind of put that in the back of my head, and once we have something that would be a solid agenda for you guys to discuss, we can get something planned and let you know what kind of location we can handle that. Any other further discussion on the bigger picture before we go into the ISG?
Having these plans, Jameson, these strategic plans, help with the grant applications, correct? A lot of times, or not always.
Yeah, I think being able to pull from a variety of long-term strategic thinking documents always helps to show that a community is on top of things, that it's progressive, that it's put thought into where it wants to go and how it's going to get there. I've in the past for grants pulled from land use plans, strategic plan, capital improvement plan, saying that this lines up with our community's goals. It's not something that we're just applying for because there's money, but it's something that we've identified as a need in the community.
This is a new commissioner question, but has the city ever done a capital improvement plan?
Usually the engineering office.
Yeah, the engineer.
So just mainly streets.
It's been infrastructure.
Streets.
I would argue that water, wastewater drive our infrastructure,
Right.
and probably will continue to for a number of years.
And we do separate studies on electric. Each utility has its own studies that are done, and then we follow that work plan throughout. So DGR has done our studies in the past and come up with a work plan based on those studies.
I would like to see us have an incumbency, pull them all into one capital improvement.
And I can guarantee that it's not just going to pull things together.
No.
There will be more added to it.
Right, I understand that, but to have some sort of a wrap around everything we've got going
Yeah,
on.
and the other part that maybe as I mentioned enough is it helps connect it with the finances too.
Mhm.
It's just not a matter of, well, we need to do this, but it connects it with all the different funding that we have across the utilities and across the general fund, and links it with the projections moving forward so that we know, one, that we're not overspending based on what our capabilities are, but two, that we're not just stockpiling money and not using it either, because that's worse than not taking it up, of course. So it kind of balances out what not nicely with the finances.
Discussion before we move on. Okay. Item number 6, discussion and possible action to approve proposal with ISG Inc. for capital improvement planning service.
Yeah, if I can find that agreement. This is what I've referred to with ISG, who's done the downtown plan of the city. There's a 2-page proposal in the last 2 pages of the council packet, which outlines what the work they would be doing is. The estimate that would take about 3 months. I know with my conversations with them, they're expecting up to 640 staff hours to do the work, so pretty considerable work on ISG's part. And the quote is $48,500. It would be $5,000 higher, but they have a partnership with Heartland Consumers Power District, and which discounts that $5,000. Steve, would you have anything you'd like to add about your methodology for that?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. The only thing I would just reinforce is that we would be looking at a comprehensive plan with this, pulling in all those studies, and then also identifying some funding strategies as part of it.
So are we gonna pay 48,500?
That'd be the contract amount, correct?
Is there any way we can do it by the hour?
We could ask them to bring us back a per hour proposal. I speculated it might end up being higher than the 48,000, but I don't know if Steve can comment to that at all.
It would be, this is a loss leader for our firm. It's an opportunity for us to develop a relationship with your group. We think it's a good practice too, and something we want to see replicated in other communities across the state, but it would be considerably higher. This is a loss leader for ISG.
Okay.
With my position at Heartland, will I have to abstain from a vote here?
I wouldn't think so. Heartland doesn't benefit from this transaction at all.
This would come out of this year's budget.
We have funding that came in from COVID that could be used. We have money sitting in the cash accounts that could be used. We just have to supplement the budget.
How long the process is this?
About 3 months. So when I reached out to them, the goal would be that it would be finished in time for us to incorporate that information into the budgeting process. Yes.
But not a planning session, probably.
Or like with the commission.
If we did one, yeah.
My thought is I'm gonna let them pull all that together, bring new information, put the plan together, and then I would work with the commission to finalize that document and as well as to collect public.
So you need a motion to approve this contract.
Yes, that is correct.
I guess I'm gonna go back to I think this is an investment into our community. And I said back in November, our whole hope was to pull our entities together and strategically plan and move us forward. And that's exactly what this does. And I'm gonna make the motion to approve the contract with ISG for $48,500. I'm taking it out of COVID funds that we have, because I do think that this is, we're coming back off of a pandemic, and I think this is a good use of money as we move forward.
It will give us a plan.
That will give us direction.
I'll second that.
Any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Public comment. Let's Robert or the two ladies have anything? Okay, any announcements?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one. I just want to publicly announce or thank Dan Wyatt for his service. He was celebrated here with the city last Friday, but just to announce it again and thank him for his service as a police officer here in town for 27 years. So
Is he officially done now?
Friday. I think Friday.
Try to get the phone over so I can thank you.
Anything else? Not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put it under.